Tens of thousands of doctors across England are setting down their stethoscopes from today as a 6-day strike begins over pay. Resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, began their walkout at 7 a.m. on April 7th after talks between the government and their British Medical Association (BMA) committee broke down. We have all you need to know on that important information also on the evening news. US President Donald Trump has threatened to bomb all of Iran's power plants and bridges if Iran does not meet his new Tuesday 8 p.m. that's 1 a.m. UK time deadline to allow shipping traffic to fully resume through the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran earlier rejected a 45-day ceasefire proposal and said it wants a permanent end to the war. Also, the Artemis 2 astronauts are on their way back to Earth from the moon after going deeper into space than any humans have ever gone before. The Orion spacecraft travelled at a record-breaking 252,756 miles away from Earth on Monday evening, becoming so close to the moon it appeared to them the size of a basketball held at arm's length. And Kanye West has said he wants to meet with the UK Jewish community as he responded to the backlash over his headline slot at Wireless Festival. The rapper, who is also known as Ye, is also to top the bill for all 3 nights of the festival in London's Finsbury Park in July, but a space calls for him to be barred from entering the country due to his history of anti-Semitism.
This is STV Evening News with Charlotte Hawkins.
Good evening. Tens of thousands of doctors across England are settling down their stethoscopes from today as a 6-day strike begins over pay. Resident doctors, formerly known as junior doctors, began their walkout at 7 a.m. on April 7th after talks between the government and the British Medical Association committee broke down. The strike action will continue until Monday, April 13th, with significant disruption expected to the health service. NHS England said that it will keep as much pre-planned care running as possible, and patients are urged to still attend their appointments unless they have been contacted and told otherwise. Urgent and emergency care will run as usual, and senior doctors are being drafted in to provide cover where possible. Pay for resident doctors, who make up nearly half of the NHS's medical workforce, has been a long-running dispute since the beginning, with this being the 15th walkout since 2023. The government last proposed a 4.9% increase in average pay from 2026 to 2027, with Health Secretary Wes Streeting telling the chair of the BMA Resident Doctors Committee the amount reflected the limits of what it is affordable, deliverable and fair to patients and taxpayers. This would have left resident doctors 35.2% better off than 4 years ago, Streeting said. The proposal also included an offer of 1,000 extra training places, although this was taken off the table last Thursday, with the Department of Health saying it was no longer financially or operationally possible. Dr. Jack Fletcher, chair of the BMA's Resident Doctors Committee, said the government quietly watered down the deal on offer to resident doctors at the 11th hour. Resident doctors are as keen as he is to bring an end to the strikes, but this government needs to put an offer on the table that we can accept and which doesn't change at the last minute, Dr. Fletcher said. House commentators have said strikes can cost up to £300 million each time. Streeting called the strike frustrating and told STV News Good Morning Britain, the tragedy of all this is that when the doctors go out on strike, they set back the progress that together we are making. He denied that the government had moved the goalpost, saying, "In fact, I met with Jack Fletcher and his officers last Friday, Good Friday, and I asked him directly what it would take for you to call off these strikes, and what is your counter-offer to the one that is on the table." He couldn't answer. They have not put any counter-proposals to us. He added, "We have been listening and responding, but it does take two to tango, and with the BMA, they will always demand more." Elsewhere, hundreds of BMA staff are also on strike in the ongoing row over pay, with a 48-hour walkout starting Monday. Senior medics are also set to be balloted on industrial action after ministers announce a 3.5% pay award. It emerged last week. Simultaneous ballots of consultants and specialists, associated specialists and specialty SAS doctors will run from May 11th until July 6th. Next this evening, US President Donald Trump has threatened to bomb all of Iran's power plants and bridges if Iran does not meet his new Tuesday 8 p.m, 1 a.m. UK time, that is, deadline to allow shipping traffic to fully resume through the Strait of Hormuz. He said he said the entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. He suggested that his latest deadline was final, saying he'd already given Iran enough extensions. Tehran earlier rejected a 45-day ceasefire proposal and said it wants a permanent end to the war. Israel piled on pressure by attacking a major petrochemical plant and killing the intelligence chief for the Parliamentary Revolutionary Guard. Tehran, with its rejection, conveyed its own 10-point plan to end the fighting through Pakistan. A key meditator, Iran's state-run IRNA news agency, said, "We only accept an end to the war with guarantees that we won't be attacked again." Majata Pentutapour, head of Iran's diplomatic mission in Cairo, told the Associated Press he said Iran no longer trusts the Trump administration after the US bombed the Islamic Republic twice during previous rounds of talks. A regional official involved in talks said efforts had not collapsed. "We are still talking to both sides," he said, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss closed-door diplomacy. I'm not going to try and pronounce that word again. And even Trump said negotiations with Iran continued. It came as the Israeli military warned Iranians in Farsi on Tuesday to avoid taking trains until at least 9 p.m. local time, likely signalling a new target for its airstrikes. "Your presence puts its life at risk," the warning in a post on X read. Iran has shut off access to the internet for weeks, making it difficult for average Iranians to see these warnings. However, Farsi language satellite news networks abroad do report them, allowing the information to make its way back into the Islamic Republic. Trump has issued ultimatums to Iran before, only to find its way back off. Only to find ways to back off, but he was more explicit this time on plans to follow through. "Every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night," he said, "and all power plants will be burning, exploding, and never to be used again." Asked if he was concerned about accusations of war crimes, Trump responded, "No, not at all." He suggested that Iranians want the US to carry out its threats because it could lead to the end of their current leadership. Iranian citizens are willing to suffer, he said, in order to have freedom, but there has been no sign of an upspring in Iran as residents shelter from their bombardment. International warnings piled up against expanded strikes. Any attack on civilian infrastructure is a violation of international law, and a very clear one. United Nations spokesperson Stefan Dujarric later told journalists, "Egyptian, Pakistani and Turkish meditators has sent Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and US Mideast envoy Steve Witkoff a proposal calling for the ceasefire and the reopening of Strait of Hormuz." The two Mideast officials told the AP the official spokes on condition of anonymity to discuss the private negotiations. Iran and Armenian officials were also working on a mechanism for administrating the strait through which a fifth of the world's oil is shipped in peacetime. Iran's grip on it has shaken the world economically. China has refused to let the US and Israeli vessels through after they started a war on February 28th. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has closed off the only road linking it to Bahrain on Tuesday after Iranian fired missiles at its oil-rich eastern province. Tehran's latest strikes come as Iranian officials urge use from human chains and power plants to protect them. In the latest deadline set by the US President Donald Trump for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz drew closer. Well, we've got more coming up on the evening news, that being Kanye West asked to meet the US Jewish community at the head of controversial wireless performance. We'll have that story and more coming up after this very short break. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back. The Artemis 2 astronauts are on their way back to Earth from the moon after going deeper into space than any humans have ever gone before. The Orion spacecraft travelled at a record-breaking 252,756 miles away from Earth on Monday evening, becoming so close to the moon it appeared to them the size of a basketball held at arm's length, NASA said. They also become the first humans to see the far side of the moon with the unaided eye during the mission as they passed behind it during the lunar flyby. They entered a period where the moon eclipsed the sun before making their journey back to Earth, with Mercury, Venus, Mars and Saturn visible during the darkness. The crew, made up of Americans Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover and Christina Koch, and Canadian Jeremy Hansen, spoke to US President Donald Trump from space about their flyby. Hansen described how the crew had been giddy as they became within 4,067 miles of the moon. When we were on the far side of the moon and out of contact with planet Earth, we all knew it. It was a milestone. We saw Earth disappear and we were so busy with the science, Hansen said. NASA's Orion spacecraft began its journey to the moon after launching on Space System rocket from the agency's Kennedy Space Center in Florida April 1st. Their mission surpasses the record of the furthest human spaceflights previously set by the Apollo 13 crew when they travelled 248,655 miles in 1970. Artemis 2 used the same manoeuvre that Apollo 13 did after its infamous Houston, "We've got a problem" incident when an oxygen tank explosion ended hope of a moon landing, becoming a fight for survival. It will take the crew 4 days to get back to Earth, with a splashdown in the Pacific expected on Friday. While the astronauts did not touch down on the moon, the mission paves the way for a future lunar landing and also lays the foundation to send a crew to Mars. NASA is planning to return to the lunar surface by 2028 after chartering another mission, Artemis 3, in 2027. Well, and on that, we'll have more after this very short break. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back. Kanye West has said he wants to meet with the US Jewish community as he responded to the backlash over his headline slot at Wireless Festival. The rapper, who is also known as Ye, is also to top the bill for all 3 nights of the festival in London's Finsbury Park in July, but a space calls for him to be barred from entering the country due to his history of anti-Semitism. In a statement, West said he wanted to present a show of change and bring unity, peace, and love through his performance. I've been following the conversation around wireless and want to address it directly. My only goal is to come to London and present a show of change, bringing unity, peace, and love through my music, the rapper said. I would be grateful for the opportunity to meet with members of the Jewish community in the UK in person to listen. I know words aren't enough, I'll have to show change through my actions, and if you're open, I'm here. The president of the board of deputies of British Jews said on Tuesday the group would be willing to meet Kanye West as part of his journey of healing, but only after he agrees not to play Wireless Festival this year. In a statement on X, Bill Rosenberg said it has been less than a year since Kanye West released a song entitled Hail Hitler, the culmination of 3 years of appalling anti-Semitism. He also made a number of deeply offensive comments about the black community, saying that the 400-year experience of slavery was like a choice, even while claiming remorse today. His latest album includes a track first released last year with aberrant appearance titled Gas Chamber. The Jewish community will want to see a genuine remorse and change before believing that the appropriate place to test this sincerity is on the main stage at the Wireless Festival. The currently available version of West's latest album, Bully, released last month, does not feature a song called Gas Chamber, but the song All the Love, which features CeeLo Green, was reportedly titled Gas Chambers prior to its release. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer called for the decision of West to headline deeply concerning last week, as major sponsors withdrew their support for the festival over booking. Home Secretary Shabina Mahmood has faced calls from politicians and the campaign against anti-Semitism to ban West from coming to the UK, and saying his presence would not be conducive to the public good. STV News understands that West's permission to enter the UK is currently being reviewed by ministers. Pre-sale tickets for Wireless Festival are being released at 12 p.m. on Tuesday, despite the controversy surrounding West, and the general sale will open at 12 p.m. on Wednesday. Melvin Benn, managing director at Festival Republic, which promotes Wireless Festival, described himself as deeply committed anti-fascist and person of forgiveness as he defended the rapper's planned performance. What Ye has said in the past about Jews and Hitler is abhorrent to me as it is to Jewish community. The Prime Minister and others have commented and taken him at his word. To Ye, now also Ben said. And there you go, that is it for the evening news tonight. Mark Austin will be here at the later time of 20 past 10. Hope you can join in for that. But from all of us here on the evening news team, bye bye.